super Friday night, Thursday night, I'm sorry, on this Thursday night. We're late. It's late, and you can tell McDonald don't even know what day it is. It will be Friday pretty soon, but not quite yet. Good to see everybody tonight on a very special live McFiles late night. And I tell you what, there is no better way to start a week. He's usually on during the first of the week. I'm going to let him finish the week up with us tonight. The one and only Jeemes Akers is on the phone with me tonight. Buddy, good to see you as always. I just look forward to these discussions. I could have you on every night if you had the time, and you could bear with me every night. But I just love having you on. It's good to have you on again tonight. How are you, sir?
Thank you, sir. I am doing well. Always a joy being with you.
Same here, my friend. Same here. You didn't put no money on March Madness. I didn't mean to take you away from your basketball game. You know, they messed up the tournament. Kentucky got beat by probably like the 100th ranked team in the country, and I was watching some of the internet response, and people are hating Kentucky tonight because it just messed that bracket way up. When you lose to Oakland, man, Oakland is like a double-A school, for goodness sake. But anyway.
I used to teach at Alice Lloyd College, a real small college in the mountains of eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Oakland, about 5 to 6 to 7 years ago, was playing in that conference.
Oh.
And they have upgraded to Division I, NCAA Division I. And let me tell you, here's how much I know about basketball. I had Kentucky winning it all.
Oh. Well, I'm glad you didn't bet money then, Akers. Don't. I'm not going to be asking you for sports advice. That's all I got to say. But anyway, hey, we've been sort of communicating back and forth this week, and you have been very struck by the events as I was. We had a special. On Tuesday night, a double feature. Had a guy, Pastor Stacy Shiflett, up in Dundalk, Maryland, that's just outside the Baltimore area, but he's like within 5 minutes of this bridge that collapsed into the ocean. And Jeemes, it seems that we're getting more questions tonight about this thing than answers. And, you know, look, me and you are of the same, we're the same fiber. We don't trust the government. If the government told us the sky was blue, and even if the government told you that Chris McDonald was ugly, I mean, we wouldn't believe that. Gray-headed. We wouldn't even believe that. But they're trying to convince us that this was mechanical failure. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. However, just based on the reporting that we're getting from, I think, legitimate sources, and I'm not saying that these legitimate sources have it all right, but they're asking questions that the mainstream media are not going to ask, and the government sure ain't going to answer. And I'm just curious from Jeemes Akers' perch tonight what you think about this. And one thing I heard just within the last few hours is that there's been 2 minutes of footage. DC Drano reported this on his Twitter handle, that there has been 2 minutes of footage that they can't find that basically would indicate really what happened and how this mechanical failure took place with the captain of the boat. I've heard everything this week, that the captain of the boat was Ukrainian. I've heard that the boat was made in China. And my dear friend Jason Miller, he may be in the house tonight, and he told me something really crazy, and I don't doubt this because Jason's good at this stuff, and I don't have no clue about these numbers, but he said that from the UN headquarters to where this place was at Francis Scott Key did the national anthem, because that's the other thing, is right where Francis Scott Key wrote our Star Spangled Banner, 322 miles, which is basically that's the Masons number. So just some crazy stuff. Jason's not crazy. Jason's a good guy. But Jeemes, the bottom line is this thing has so much weird stuff over it tonight, and it don't feel right to me. It's not felt right from the beginning. I know that it's where we need to be very careful not to exaggerate anything, and we try on this network not to do that. But you can't help but shake your head at this stuff and say this is some weird stuff. And I'm going to get into the prophetic stuff, the spiritual end of this more, but just from a practical standpoint, from your perch, what's your thoughts on this, and how do you feel? What's behind all this tonight, if anything?
Well, I sent you a piece a couple ago about conspiracy theories and all of this, that, and the other. And I am the last, I hope, person to take up a conspiracy theory. But if I was a conspiracy theorist, there are a number of coincidences in this whole incident that could make me one very easily. And something smells bad about me. And the fact that government spokesmen come out almost immediately after the accident and said there's no terrorism angle here, and came up with a theory about, something happened on board the ship and it accidentally veered off course and there was no pilot on the ship.
Right.
And if a ship was designed to bring down the Francis Scott Key Bridge, it would have hit that point. And that bridge is absolutely critical. Anybody that's traveled up the East Coast, you have two choices. You can go up 75.
Correct.
And pay the toll and go under the tunnel and then go on up north towards New York City.
New York City.
Or you can go around Baltimore on 675.
695, yeah.
Or 695,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're right.
And because of the tunnel, all hazardous waste and other materials have to take that route around Baltimore and go across the bridge. In other words, it cripples not to mention that the port is shut down, not to mention now that they're talking about some things on the cargo ship had been breached and hazardous waste spilling out, not even to mention those things. You have effectively cut the ability of waste materials, hazardous materials, to circumvent that tunnel and go around the city. This thing is far more critical than any of the mainstream media is reporting on. And it's been taken up now. I saw Lance Wallano featured it on his show. Michael Snyder, which I read a lot, has taken it up. And there are a lot of questions being asked about it. And a lot of people are suggesting it's more than just one coincidence after another. When I was teaching out at the College of the Ozarks, I would always begin the second half of Western Civ with a section on what I call the silent war. There is right now an ongoing, undeclared sort of a tit for tat incidents of this type that are happening around the world. And it is what many people call, a silent war that's going on. It's undeclared, that it operates by its own rules of the game. Buried on the back page of a newspaper will be an explosion of a fertilizer factory in country X. 2 weeks later, there'll be an unexplained explosion of a food production factory in another country, and it's just sort of a tit for tat thing that goes on. All of it operates under the cover of plausible deniability. If you say anything about it, you're just a wacko conspiracy theorist. But that is a real world that operates 2 or 3 layers under the surface.
Absolutely, Jeemes. Do you?
Violent war, and there have been a couple books written about it, and it is really interesting to study. But the mainstream media won't touch it, So.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how concerned are you that a foreign power may have been behind this? I know that is one of the theories out there. There's another theory that. And again, the what the media is reporting, what Baltimore officials are saying, that the ship just lost control, the mechanical thing just shut down, and it veered off to the right. And there's videos out there. I mean, they're fast forwarded, man. It's really eerie, and I keep saying in my mind, well, Lord, that ship could have veered left and not hit the bridge, but it just so happened coincidentally veered right and slammed into this bridge and caused it to come down. And look, I'm like you. We don't traffic in conspiracies talk on this network. We try to stay away from that. But you can't help but wonder and question, why did this thing? Because it almost looked like on the video, James, to me, that ship was directed there intentionally to hit that part of the bridge, because it's just freaky that bridge just lost mechanical power at the same minute it's going past the undergirding of that bridge that caused the whole thing to collapse in the ocean. Am I being out there too much on the limb, or is that a fair question to ask tonight?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair to ask the questions. And as long as you don't invest yourself wholly in a conclusion, because you can't come to that conclusion.
No, you can't.
Based on what evidence we have, there's a lot of supposition involved in that. But on the other side, the very intentional effort of the government to deny that there's anything questionable, even before an investigation was done. That there's nothing unusual in this. It was just a navigational error, a maritime error. That gives me pause. Why? And now you're seeing the narrative in the major newspapers being reconstructed. It's going to the immigrants that were working on the bridge to sort of stoke a sympathy for the immigrants, the workers that were killed, who did jobs nobody else in this country would do, and that's sort of where the narrative is going, and it's like they're making every possible effort to steer away from any questioning whatsoever about this accident, and if indeed it was an accident. And so it is one of those many events that, because we so, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, because we are so distrustful of the government telling us the truth, that we actually have no clue what happened.
It's very true, buddy.
And so that's where I stand on it. If an entity that hated this country was going to strike a blow against the ordinary transportation flow in this country, and do it in a way that there's plausible deniability of what they've done, this checks off all the boxes for that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. This, I do believe, spiritually, from a spiritual point of view, is connected. Me and you both are faith folks, and we love Israel because we understand the Lord's plan for the nation, but we also understand that America has been very, very ugly to Israel, Jeemes, in the last few months. And it's been, usually in the past, and maybe you can speak to this, in the past, if America had a beef with Israel, we picked up the phone, we called Benjamin Netanyahu, whatever the prime minister was over there. We dealt with them privately. And those conversations every now and then would get out in the media, but it was not our first reaction to embarrass her publicly, because we knew that if America is seen as being in distance from Israel, her enemies are going to take advantage of that. But Monday, just hours before this event, because this event took place in the wee hours of the morning, Monday night into Tuesday, around 1 o'clock in the morning Tuesday. And that was just less than 12 hours when the UN voted basically to condemn Israel, call for a ceasefire. And whereas in the past, they would have probably not done this publicly. They would have maybe, because Joe Biden has been saying he's taken these snippets at Netanyahu, and then Kamala Harris went out and threatened her publicly just a day before the UN vote. Do you, like I, and you may not, but I do see a correlation in the two, because I believe it's a response from heaven, a divine warning that if we cut the legs out from Israel, which is what we did Monday publicly, and we put distance between us and her, and guess what happened? The hostage deal between her and Hamas got called off because Hamas saw this, and they said, well, America's not in Israel's corner like we thought, so we ain't got to negotiate in good faith now. I believe the Lord cut the legs out from underneath us, because from what I understand about this bridge, Jeemes, is that this bridge also is where our oil can be stopped. I mean, whereas, as you said, every really major commodity that comes into the America's ports comes through that bridge, and it comes into that port harbor where, again, Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. I don't think you can get too much more prophetic than that, my friend. But the time element is there, and it's less than 24 hours, less than 12 hours after we did what we did at the UN on Monday. What's your thoughts?
Well, that's a tough connection to make, but I will. I agree with you on this count. I think scripturally, God, when He exercises judgment, and in my view, it's withdrawing His hand of favor rather than slapping down the hammer on something.
I'll agree with that. I will agree.
And there are two different sorts of that, ways to do that. One is on a personal level, and if I've mentioned this before, just go ahead and stop it. On a personal level, it is whether an individual has entered into a relationship with Jesus Christ. But there is also, God metes out judgment to countries. And He does it in one of two ways. When a country's leadership, judicial and legislative and executive, turns its back on God and thumbs its nose at God, then judgment comes on the land, and the land will start to burp up the sin, and we're starting to see natural disasters happen. And another way is if a country turns its back on Israel. And we are, whether there's a direct cause-effect relationship between this and what we're doing with Israel, I can't speak to that, but I can say in a general sense, scripturally speaking, if we continue to turn our back and in fact aid the enemies of Israel, it puts this country in a position of inviting judgment. And with all the crazy things that are going on, and as far as we have strayed off the tracks in terms of marriage and gender and all of those other things, that's a dangerous place for this country to be in.
Absolutely.
And agree on for sure.
Yeah, and we're not apart from that. I even said that Tuesday night to Stacy, Pastor Schifflet, that you took the words out of my mouth literally. I said that's how God usually addresses countries. He takes His hand of protection off of them. And Jeemes, is it fair enough to say that when something like this happens, though, this bridge, again, was so vital to so many things, and look, the location significance can't be lessened. The impact to our economy can't be lessened. And the other thing, if there's any mercy in this, and thank God it happened at 1 o'clock in the morning, because if this would have happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it would have been 6 people. And our prayers go with those 6 people tonight, because it's sad that there were 6 workers that they pulled out of the river yesterday and they're confirmed dead. But you think about what would have happened had this happened during rush hour Monday and not 1 o'clock Tuesday morning, buddy. You wouldn't have been looking at 6. You'd have been looking at maybe 600. Perhaps, with all the traffic going across that bridge, because I've been up that road. I know which road. I've been that road many times, and I've been on that bridge when it's been nothing but a parking lot because of the traffic through Baltimore, and it could have been a lot worse than 6, my friend.
You know, just sort of playing, arguing against this being a pure accident. There are just so many circumstances, and there have been a couple journalists that have pointed out just several things that had to come together to make this incident happen the way it did. And if I was somebody planning to serve up a warning message, and try to hit a target that I would have plausible deniability about, this is exactly the type of target I would pick and the way I would go about it. And you know, when you start arguing against that, then it seems to me you're on sort of shallow ground. It very well may have been just a pure accident, as they're trying to make it out to be. But man, there's something about it that just smells bad.
All right. Fair enough. We got about another 5-10 minutes with you. It's late. I'm going to get you back on next week. We'll do another longer interview on it because it is late tonight. But I do want to ask you a question. If the truth is to come out about this, where does it come from? Does it come from the government? Does it come from shows like this? Does it come from people like DC Drano tonight? Does it come from Laura Logan, who basically did some excellent reporting on this? And do you think that people are going to have to turn to third alternate news sources to get the truth about this? Because, look, I don't want us to go on the other side of the spectrum and throw stuff on the wall, throw speculation on the wall, throw innuendo on the wall, throw conspiracy talk on the wall. And look, it's no denying that the boat was from China. We understand all that. We know possibly that, you know, from what we've gathered, the captain's, his origins are suspicious. But I like what you said a while ago. None of this is provable right now. But do you think we get to the truth of this, or does it keep smelling to both Jeemes Akers and Chris McDonald, and we never get to the truth? Because, buddy, to me, this is a big deal, and I don't know if people maybe grasp how big a deal this was, because this, again, struck at the heart of our nation, buddy. This was it just felt, I know it. They're not going to call it a terrorist attack, but I have to tell you, it felt like one, Jeemes. It just felt like one to me Tuesday when I heard about this.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I disagree with you, Chris. The problem to me is the one I mentioned before. We have so at least half the population have such little trust in what the government and the government-approved organs tell us about anything. And if there's anything suspicious in this, the government's going to bury it for years. There's going to be an investigation. A maritime committee will be pulled together, or a commission. They'll study what went wrong. We won't hear the results of that in another year or a year and a half. They'll bury it deep. Tomorrow or the next day, there'll be another headline that'll crowd it out to the front page. and the government anymore doesn't provide information. It just covers things up till people forget about it.
Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. One couple of other stories that I want to ask you about real quick tonight. This slain police officer tonight, President Trump, Officer Diller, they had him, his wake. I know we're not from the Northeast, but I'm going to get some folks on this about next week. But President Trump came out tonight, and he said that crime, we've got to restore law and order. And he said, we're just not going to let what happened in New York with this police officer happen. I know he can't stop all of it, but I do believe he is going to make a difference in the law and order situation. But Jeemes, it's getting to the point, buddy, even as folks down south, it's not safe to walk to your mailbox because it feels like every city in America has turned into Beirut, Lebanon. I mean, it feels like we're in Tehran, Iran, or Baghdad, Iraq, or Fallujah, Iraq, because of the crime. And the people that are on the front lines, the police officers and the first responders and people of that nature that put their lives on the line every day to try to keep law and order, to keep peace, they're in the most dangerous place they have ever been, Jeemes. And we've got to get this under control. And I don't see how you do that until you get this garbage administration out. I just don't. And then it's going to take a lot of work on behalf of these local municipalities to get police chiefs in there that are not going to be woke. They're going to keep the law and they're going to enforce the law as it should be enforced. And I'll let you wrap us up on that thought. We'll pick this up next week.
Well, it's a tough uphill climb because, would you advise your son to go into law enforcement now?
No, never.
And the people with experience and that originally had a desire to go into law enforcement, I mean, they are running away from a profession like crazy. And so, in all of these municipalities that turned their backs on police and law enforcement, they're having a hard time getting people to fill the positions. Duh.
I know.
You have a cycle there that is fully explainable. Violence is going to continue because the police do not get the backing they need in courts or in the mayor's office to take a stand against crime. They get frustrated and they leave. So you have a shortage of professionals. You have people now that are filling the ranks that have no training whatsoever. And so, that sets the stage for further abuses, and this cycle's just going to continue until we recognize that there is a spirit of lawlessness.
Yes.
And we are on the solid scriptural grounds when we talk about there have been many people that talk about, as we get closer to the end, this spirit of lawlessness will take control of everything. And we have had cycles of lawlessness before, in the 60s, and this is not totally new, but the technology and the just pure evil that's behind it is a completely different dimension than we've seen before. And in my mind, it is just one signpost that leads on the road towards the end. There will be no respect for law and order in any of these countries that came to greatness because they could rely on law and order and decency of the populace. Those things are disappearing before our eyes, and I'm closer to the end than the beginning, and so it's okay for me. But for my grandchildren, Chris,
I know, buddy.
what kind of world are we leaving them? We're leaving them in a fiscal hole that they'll never dig out of, and a culture of lawlessness and complete disregard for any sort of standard. You know, what kind of world are we leaving them? And all of this is just incrementally bites away. The ultimate target of all this, in my mind, I could be completely wrong.
I'm with you.
It's all orchestrated to undermine a faith in Jesus Christ.
One other quick question. Former Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman died earlier today or yesterday. He was 82, had a complication from a fall. What was your opinion of him overall as a senator and as an American?
You know, I sort of liked Lieberman. He's, he was in the realm of politics. He probably voted more against programs that I would favor than he voted for. But when it comes to certain essentials, as a Jew, he was a staunch supporter of Israel. As a Jew, he rose up in the ranks and, carved out a legacy for himself in politics. And even though he had views that I would disagree with, I think I always had the impression that he was a person of integrity, and that is in short supply inside the Beltway these days.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about him, and I agree with what you said, his assessment, I think as a man, just as a person, I felt like he was an okay guy. But I think him trusting Al Gore to do the right thing after the 2000 election, and then when Kerry ran, and Al Gore endorsed Kerry over Lieberman, because Lieberman tried to run in 2004 against Bush himself, and Gore basically stuck a knife up his back. I think that was a low moment. It wasn't Lieberman's fault, but he was a little naive, and I never understood. We'll actually close on this with you tonight. It's funny to me how naive politicians are, including Joe Lieberman, that people in D.C. are going to have your back, and people in D.C. are going to do the right thing. Because, Jeemes, you and I both know you've been around this longer than I have. You've been in the middle of this more than I have. Politics is a toxic, dirty business, and you get in the bed with pigs, you're going to get mud on you. And I hate to say this, but there ain't a politician in D.C. that ain't got mud and dirt. It's a filthy, dirty business. You get in the middle of it, you're going to get dirt on you. And I think Lieberman found that out. And, he was never the same. You never heard from him much after that. And he sort of went into the woodwork pretty much after that. And, that would be my take, that he should have never trusted Al Gore. But there was a lot of people that shouldn't trust Al Gore, because Al Gore claims Al Gore said we're supposed to be in the Ice Age by now. And we're not. We're supposed to be oblivious. We're supposed to be in oblivion by now. He's only predicted that about 100 times over the last 10 years and made millions of dollars on it. But I'm with you. Lieberman was a good man, but he was a very naive politician. And it ultimately tarnished his legacy, because he should have made a side. These independents need to take a side. You're either for the country or you're not. And if you're going to side with the Democrats, to me, you're a Democrat. That's just the way I look at it. And that's my 2 cents on that. Buddy, thank you so much for being with me tonight. Listen, I wish we had more time. It's late. Thank you for taking 20 minutes out of your evening to help us with this Thursday night, late night special. I will have you back on next week or the next, buddy, and we'll talk more, okay? And we'll talk longer.
That sounds good. I look forward to it. And again, God is not worried about anything that's going on. He has it in control, and that's sometimes when we talk about these events, that's an important thing to remember.
Absolutely, my friend. Jeemes, thank you so much. Jeemes Akers, everybody. Buddy, we'll be in touch. God bless now.
Oh, God bless.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Always welcome here. Thank you, Jeemes. Bye-bye now. Jeemes Akers, everybody. Put some fire in that house. We're so grateful for him, and we're grateful for you tonight. And I was just sort of looking at some of the headlines. Did you like Jeemes? Put some fire in that house for him. and and so forth. And folks, we don't traffic in conspiracy talk. And Cold Cheese says White House says not a terrorist attack and not World War III, so it's probably terrorists in World War III. Cold Cheese, I have to agree with that, and I tend to agree with that. That's a pretty good comment, my friend. I'm not going to disagree with that. We've just put some headlines up in the McFiles War Room. If it wasn't Good Friday tomorrow, we'd probably do a wrap-up show tomorrow night, but the world will be insane next week, and we're going to basically pick a lot of these stories up next week. One of the headlines tonight that is very troubling, basically there has been quite a bit of violence in New York. Joe Lieberman dying is part of the headlines. Friedman, the one that basically stole all that money, he gets 25 years tonight in prison. The stock trader guy that basically all these Democrats were given to, but when he got convicted, they wanted to get a distance from him. Anyway, we're grateful that you're with us tonight. It is really good to see everybody, and we hope that you've enjoyed Jeemes Akers. I will tell you this. There was something that happened today on The View. Not that I watched The View, but we got a story about it. This is how sick this country is. Whoopi Goldberg is complaining tonight. Yeah, Sam Backman-Fried, Mikey, thank you. Whoopi Goldberg tonight is upset that President Trump is selling Bibles. If you can believe that. President Trump is giving Bibles away, selling Bibles to people. And she claims that the country is on the brink of fascism because Trump is giving Bibles away and selling Bibles. Wow. I didn't know that that was tied to fascism. Didn't know that was tied to fascism. But anyway, that's the state of affairs in our nation tonight. All righty, we got about 7 minutes. If you got a question, if you got any statement about the issue tonight, and keep it on topic if you can. It's good to see everybody. We got an excellent, excellent crowd. We got an excellent crowd. Devils do hate Bibles, Cold Cheese, but liberals do too. And a lot of Christians hate the Bible, Cold Cheese. A lot of Christians don't read their Bibles. Christians that love the Bible don't read them, so I don't know what's worse. I'm not going to disagree with that, but it ain't just the devils. It's the Christians that don't read them. That's not helping the country either. But anyway, if you got a statement or two, we got about 6 or 7 minutes. We've got a great crowd for a late night Thursday. And we're grateful that you're here. I will say this. There's another poll out tonight. Do you realize that 4 out of 5 Americans, 80% of Americans still support the Israeli war? This government don't. This government's doing everything they can to undermine Israel, and it's very sad tonight. But our prayers need to continue to be with Bibi Netanyahu. They need to finish this. They need to get in there. If you heard James R. Monday night, he's on the clock. He's definitely on the clock. He's going to have to get something fixed pretty quick and get this done. So our prayers for Bibi tonight, and I pray that that will happen very quick. But 4 out of 5 Americans, we got that story in there in our newsroom. We got a lot of stories from today, including an update on the crash and some other stories that you'll find at the McFiles Telegram room. And I will say this. I sort of mentioned it with, if you didn't hear, Senator Lieberman passed away today at 82. I remember him from really the early 2000s. He ran as Al Gore's running mate in that hanging Chad election. For those of you that forget that or forgot that or wasn't born then in 2000, that was a crazy time then. And the Supreme Court basically had to stop the counting in Florida. And when they did that, Bush won by about 500 votes. And basically the country went to Bush Jr. after Clinton. And then in 2004, John Kerry was running, and Lieberman was in the primary against Kerry, and Gore basically threw his weight behind Kerry and not Lieberman. And as I was telling Jeemes, Lieberman's political career was over pretty much after that, and he stayed in Congress, I think, till early 2010, 2011. It's right before Obama, I think, his second term, Lieberman retired. And but he always, the only thing I would say about Joe Lieberman tonight, and I'd say it about a lot of politicians, they straddle the fence. They don't take a stand either way. And it's just not good for our country. And the way I look at it, he voted with the Dems 98% of the time. Joe Lieberman was a Democrat. I don't care when people say, I've been reading the headlines today, an independent senator, he was independent. No, Joe Lieberman was a Democrat. He was a Democrat because he voted Democrat. He very seldom voted with the Republicans. I will say this, in all fairness to Joe Manchin tonight. I'm not a big fan of Joe Manchin. He's another independent, and he caucuses with the Dems a lot. But there have been times recently that he has sided with the Republicans, and he's pretty much saved the Republic by his vote because of this radical left-wing agenda that's trying to be pushed through our throats, down our throats in the Senate tonight, in this House. But I wish these candidates would pick a side. Just this independent stuff, when it comes to the congressional balance of power, is not good for the country. And I almost would respect it more if they just came out and said, hey, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican, or whatever that means these days. I don't even know if we know the difference, do we? But that's my take on Joe Lieberman. Our prayers for the family. It's sad. Dennis Floyd says, just as no sane person would go into police work, isn't that the same feeling about the military? Dennis, I couldn't agree more. My brother's former military. He actually retired early when he saw the morale. He had another time. He could have stayed in longer, but he just, when Obama took office, he couldn't stomach it because of what he knew they were going to do to the military. And Obama did exactly what my brother felt like and feared that was coming. And the military has been in a woke state ever since. And it's not good. And I'm with you. Trump restored some dignity to it. He tried to, at least. But again, folks, let me remind you, Trump is just one man. Dennis, your point is well taken. It's a good point. It's an excellent point. I was thinking about the police this week, actually, and I was driving by and I saw, I don't know where I was at, but I saw several police cars. It was in a gas station. And they were responding to something. It could have been a robbery. It could have been something. You knew something was up when you have 3 or 4 or 5 police cars with their lights on. It's not good. And I thought to myself, these police officers, I think, start out at $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Their starting base salary, if you're just a rookie police officer, that's about average. It may even be less than that. It may be more, but it's around that ballpark. And these police officers go out there every single night, and they kiss their kids in the morning. They kiss their wife in the morning goodbye. They tell them, I'll be home tonight for dinner. And many of them don't come back home. And they take their life into their own hands. It is so dangerous right now, folks, with the lawlessness in this nation. A police officer cannot even basically handle a stop sign violation without being worried that the guy or the woman or whoever's in that car is going to pull a gun on them and kill them. And these domestic calls, I've been watching some of the shows on television, watching these news stories, and a good majority of these deaths are happening when police are responding to just domestic arguments, and they get over there and it's an ambush or it's a war zone or whatever, and it's a tough job, and I know that not every police officer is perfect. I know there's a lot to be desired sometimes with some of the actions of some, not all, but some. Your point, Dennis, about the military is spot on because it's the parallel situation in the military. I mean, would you want to work for a commander-in-chief like we got right now? I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I mean, I'd defend the country and think the rank and file, and while you're at it, Dennis, I'll just throw in the intelligence forces. Look, We've got two of the best men in Jeemes Akers and Brad Johnson. You can't get two more better patriots than those two guys, and we embrace them on this show. We get all sorts of slanderous emails in about, well, your network is supporting the CIA and all this crap and all this bullshit. Let me tell you something. Jeemes Akers and Brad Johnson are patriots. They defended this nation from enemies, foreign and domestic. But I've talked to Brad Johnson and Jeemes Akers both about the CIA and the intelligence agencies. The same issue. The morale, people do not want to get into that agency because of the bureaucracy. The rank and file people they care about the country. The problems are up top. All these three-letter agencies that people complain about and throw conspiracy talk out about and all this crap that you see on the internet about, folks, it ain't the rank and file. Rank and file are mainly having to follow orders many times what they do. It's the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats. But anyway, it is 10:29. I could talk on that all night. Dennis, great point. You're right. It would be insanity right now to be part of this military. I wouldn't put and I tell you what scares me. And my son, I've shared this story a few times, and I'll just make this quick. Probably right around Christmas, I'll never forget, we were driving down the road with him, and he said, Dad, I'm scared. And I said, what you scared about? And he said, I heard today from my buddies that they're going to reinstitute the draft. And he said, I don't want to go to war. I'm scared that this government's going to make us go. And I found it intriguing because you have to know my little boy. He's not my little boy anymore. I still look at him and say, he's 22 years old, but he's still my baby. I mean, he's the youngest. And I just, you have something special in your heart for that youngest. And he's such a sweet kid. He truly is. He's a smart kid, jam up youngin', and I love him, respect him, proud of him, proud of Brandon, all my boys. I'm proud of all three sons, Josh. Caleb's just got such a sweet spirit about him. But I found it intriguing that even that generation understands the peril the nation's in. Usually kids that age don't. But he recognized that it's a real possibility that this monstrous administration would pull us into a war. And Dennis, that's the other thing that I see too. I think part of that insanity is that I think most kids and most young people understand that they're taking their life in their hands right now. And I'm not saying it's not an honor to defend your country. What it's not an honor is when bureaucrats are sending our kids over there intentionally to get killed. That's different. That's different. So I'm with you 1,000,000%. I'm with you 1,000,000%. And our prayers for the law enforcement agencies out there tonight and the intelligence agencies and our military tonight. We salute you all that are on these front lines, and you're getting very little appreciation from your government. You sure ain't getting any protection. And you're getting a lot of disrespect out here in the John Q. public who, instead of thanking you for protecting their sorry blanks from a lawless society, you get nothing but slammed, and you get nothing but innuendo, slander, and gossip, and everything else under the sun, and trash talked, and bad mouthed, and everything else, which is a disgrace to this country. It's a disgrace to this country. And that's my final word tonight. That is my final word. Cedric or Cole Chaster, I think Speaker Johnson will be voted out because of the spending. Nope, sure don't. I sure don't. Nope, he ain't going to be voted out. He will not. He won't be voted out. He won't be voted out. Anyway, but we appreciate you being with us. Now, tomorrow, Friday, Bible study in the morning, Faith Network. All the Bible students out there, see you in the morning on the Faith Network. Bible study, 9:30. Tomorrow afternoon, we've made a decision at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to have our Good Friday service. It's going to be a day of faith. Tomorrow's Good Friday. Easter is this weekend. And that is the only show that we'll have tomorrow. It'll be on the Faith. We may air the Good Friday service on both the News Network and the Faith Network. And we'll definitely air it on the Faith and Facebook. No show tomorrow night. We want you to spend this weekend reflecting on the Lord's death, burial, and resurrection. And then Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Sunrise is around 6:37. We may start at 7. I'll tell you what, we'll start it at 7. 7 o'clock Eastern. We're going to be having a sunrise service. It just lasts an hour. It may not even last that long, about 45 minutes. A devotion, a song, and some thoughts about the resurrection. And then Sunday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern, Lord willing, our Sunday morning resurrection fellowship time, a special service, special program honoring the Lord and his resurrection on Sunday. So that's what we got ahead of us. Faith service tomorrow, Good Friday service tomorrow afternoon, sunrise service Sunday morning, Easter service 10. And we want you to be with us in all these. We're going to honor the Lord, and all of those services will have a devotion, and we'll have, of course, the service Sunday will be about an hour and a half, but all these other services will be about 45 minutes to an hour, if not less. Sunrise service Sunday morning may only last a half hour, so please be with us for that, and we hope you'll enjoy it. Now, I know we got a lot of questions about the eclipse. Next week, a week from tonight, we got a good friend of ours, Troy Anderson. He wrote a book called Trump Apocalypse. Good guy. We've had him on before. And he's got a lot of thoughts about the eclipse. We're going to bring him on, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to actually be having live coverage Monday, the 8th of April, from Nineveh, Ohio. If we can find a way into that city, I can guarantee you it's going to be, I may have to be on the outskirts, but we're going to be on Ground Zero. And we're going to be live right here on the news network covering it. Now, I know there's going to be a million other people doing it too, and that's fine. But if you want to join the McFile clan listening, we'd welcome you in here Monday. And we'll probably air, we'll start about 2 o'clock because the thing's supposed to come over Nineveh around 3, from what I understand. So we'll have a special Monday event on the 8th. So we got a lot to say about the eclipse, but not tonight. And we'll let it go at this, and we'll just say that we'll talk about it more on the Bible studies next week for sure. But just know that we're aware of what's coming on the 8th, and we're going to be there. But Troy will be with us a week from tonight, and you're going to love Troy. He's a good guy, very grounded. And with any guest, folks, let me just say this about any guest, and I would say this about anybody we have. Just because we have a guest, it does not mean that we have to agree with 100% jot and tittle of everything they say. And especially faith guests, I've learned that as long as we can agree on the fundamentals, and they're coming on here giving you the fundamental truth, I don't have to agree with every dotted T and every dotted I and every T crossed, as long as what they're saying is fundamentally true and they don't take you away from the Bible. Troy Anderson's that kind of guy. I may not agree with every single thing I've read that Troy writes, but in this matter, I have prayed and prayed, Lord, who do I need to get on the network to talk about the eclipse in a reasonably sound, doctrinally sound, grounded manner, and he gave me Troy on my heart. And I called him and texted him, and he was excited to come back on the McFiles. And so we're going to have him on next Thursday night, and I'll let you make the call. How about that? All right. That's all I got tonight. Listen, it's late. I love you. Thank you for being up with me. Like and subscribe to the network. I will see you in the morning, bright and early, on the Faith Network, our Bible students. Day of Faith tomorrow, Good Friday. And let's celebrate the Lord's Passion and His resurrection this weekend. I want to wish our folks in Australia, it's already Good Friday tonight. It's already Good Friday there. I hope you have a blessed Good Friday down under. And we'll see the rest of you here tomorrow. And until then, McDonald out on this Thursday night, the 28th day of March 2024. Did you enjoy the show tonight? I thought it was a pretty good show. James rocks the house as always, and we're grateful you've been with us. Until tomorrow, McDonald out on a Thursday. Put some fire in that house for me one more time. May the Lord bless you, folks. and we shall see you tomorrow right here on the McFiles and the Facebook. Good night, everybody.